Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Cisco Secure Firewall. And let me tell you, judging from the stack of materials you sent our way, this is serious business for you. Sounds like you're at a crossroads with your firewall setup, thinking about upgrades, migrations, maybe even waving goodbye to Cisco altogether. Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to unpack it all, from those gotta see it to believe it stats to those hidden features you never even knew existed. By the time we're done with this deep dive, you'll be a Cisco Secure Firewall guru, ready to make that big decision with total confidence.
Firewalls, they're kind of like the unsung heroes of cybersecurity, always working behind the scenes, keeping everything running smoothly. But let me tell you, in today's world, where those cyber threats are getting more sophisticated, harder to spot, choosing the right firewall, well, it ain't just checking a box anymore. It's about making a strategic move, a real investment in your organization's security.
Okay, you've got my attention. So paint us a picture. What's the cybersecurity landscape looking like these days? I mean, it's got to be more complicated than just building the wall around your network, right?
Think of it like this. Imagine a giant jigsaw puzzle, right? But here's the catch. This puzzle's always changing shape, pieces moving around. That's what we're dealing with. You got your branch offices, folks working from home, these hybrid cloud environments connecting data centers with cloud apps, and then a whole mess of third-party integrations. It's a lot to juggle, believe me.
Yeah, no kidding. And I bet those misconfigurations don't help either. Didn't Cisco say something crazy like 99% of firewall breaches happen because of them?
You hit the nail on the head, 99%. You got that right. It's a real eye-opener, and it highlights just how critical user-friendliness is. We're not just talking about convenience here. We're talking about dramatically lowering your risk.
Makes you realize it's not just about having a firewall. It's about having the right firewall and knowing how to use it. So what sets Cisco Secure Firewall apart in this whole mess?
Well, for starters, Cisco's been a major player in networking for ages, right? I mean, they handle a whopping 85% of global internet traffic.
85%.
Yeah.
That's most of the internet. Talk about experience.
That's exactly it. They've seen it all, from the early days to the constantly evolving threats we face now. They're not just reacting, they're anticipating, always staying one step ahead.
Okay, I'm ready to hear what makes this firewall tick. What's under the hood?
Well, one of the things that really sets Cisco Secure Firewall apart is Snort 3.
Snore 3. Lay it on me.
Think of it like having an elite security guard, but for your network. It's the gold standard for intrusion prevention, and there's a good reason for that. It's constantly on the lookout, analyzing traffic, and it's really, really good at spotting those sneaky intruders no matter how they're trying to disguise themselves.
Sounds like something out of a spy movie.
And then there's their encrypted visibility engine. And let me tell you, this is a game changer, especially with how much of the internet's encrypted these days.
Hold on, encrypted traffic? You mean hackers are hiding their tracks in plain sight?
Kinda, yeah. You see, most websites now use something called TLS, that's transport layer security. It's like putting your information in a tamper-proof envelope before sending it out.
Okay, that makes sense for privacy, but
But it makes it tough for those traditional firewalls to inspect what's inside to make sure there's nothing malicious going on.
so it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but the haystack's wrapped in steel wool. Not exactly ideal.
You got it. But that's where Cisco's encrypted visibility engine comes in. It's like having X-ray vision for your network traffic. They can see inside those encrypted envelopes without actually opening them up, making sure nothing shady slips through.
Smart. Okay, I'm officially intrigued. What else have they got up their sleeve?
Well, they've racked up a ton of awards. Product of the Year from CRN, Tech Leader from PeerSpot, the list goes on. But to really get why Cisco Secure Firewall is such a big deal, we got to dig a little deeper.
All right, let's dive into those features. What makes this Cisco Secure Firewall so special?
One of the big ones is this thing called Secure Firewall Threat Defense, or FTD for short. Think of it like the brains of the operation, the control center.
Okay, so FTD is calling the shots. What kind of power are we talking here?
FTD is built for those really complex networks, the ones with tons of layers. One way it does this was with something called tenant separation. Imagine, say, you're a huge company with a bunch of different departments, or maybe you're handling separate networks for different clients.
Okay, so like a big office building, different companies sharing the space, but each one's got their own secure area.
Exactly. FTD lets you set up these separate, isolated environments right inside the firewall itself. Each tenant, they get their own rules, their own policies, all managed independently.
So even if one tenant, messes up or something happens,
Yeah.
the others are still safe. That's got to be reassuring, especially with all those misconfiguration stats we talked about.
Exactly. It limits the damage, keeps everything running smoothly. And here's the best part. FTD is built to scale. So as your organization grows, FTD grows right along with it, handles more traffic, adapts to those new security needs. No need to rip and replace everything every time you add a new office or move more stuff to the cloud.
Love it when tech can keep up. Now, you mentioned impact analysis earlier. Does
Yeah.
that tie into this whole scalability thing?
100%. See, with traditional firewalls, making changes to your security settings, it was always a bit of a gamble, right? Like walking a tightrope, you make one wrong move, boom, you got outages, performance tanks, it's a mess. But FTD,
Takes the guesswork out.
exactly. You can actually simulate changes before you commit to them. See exactly how it'll impact your network, your security. It's like having a crystal ball for your firewall.
Sign me up. No more late-night panic attacks after a policy update.
Hmm.
But with all that power, I imagine there's a ton of stuff to keep track of. Logs, alerts, potential threats. How do you manage all that without getting overwhelmed?
That's where prioritized administration comes in. FTD doesn't just drown you in data, right? It helps you prioritize, focus on what matters most. It's like having a personal assistant for your firewall, filtering out all the noise.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Now let's talk about Snort 3. Remember that elite security guard we mentioned earlier? I'm ready to hear more about this Snort 3 superstar.
So Snort 3, it's a huge leap forward from its predecessor, Snort 2, and it's the heart of Cisco's Secure Firewall's Intrusion Prevention System. Think of it this way. It's the difference between an old-school security camera and a state-of-the-art surveillance system, the kind with facial recognition and all that.
Okay, now we're talking. So it's not just about catching those known bad guys. It's about predicting what those bad guys are going to do next.
Exactly. Snort 3 uses a multi-threaded architecture, which basically means it can process tons of data all at once without breaking a sweat. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's incredibly good at spotting those little anomalies in your network traffic, the ones that might signal a threat.
So it's like having a supercomputer dedicated to analyzing every single bit of data that flows through your network, looking for those subtle clues. But what about those encrypted tunnels we talked about? Can Snort 3 see through those too?
That's where Cisco's TLS 1.3 decryption comes in. Remember how we were talking about TLS encryption being like a tamper-proof envelope?
Like those lead-lined walls they have in X-ray rooms, impossible to get through.
Exactly. But Cisco's TLS 1.3 decryption is like having special X-ray goggles, allows Snort 3 to peek inside that encrypted traffic without impacting performance or compromising anyone's privacy.
Best of both worlds. Super secure and super smooth for the user. No more laggy websites or frustrated employees.
Precisely. And while we're on the topic of modern security, we got to talk about zero trust. It's a buzzword for a reason, and Cisco Secure Firewall is right there on the front lines.
Zero trust. It does sound a little intense, like we're dealing with some major trust issues on the network level.
In a way, yeah. Remember that jigsaw puzzle we talked about? All those different pieces connecting and disconnecting all the time? Zero trust recognizes that the old way of doing things, just building a wall around your network and calling it a day, that's not enough anymore.
So no more assuming that everything inside the network is safe and sound.
Nope. Zero trust is all about never trust, always verify. Every user, every device, every single connection, it's treated with suspicion until it proves it's legit.
Okay, I get how that would tighten things up security-wise. But how does Cisco Secure Firewall actually do zero trust? What's the secret sauce?
Well, for one thing, they got this thing called clientless access, which means users can connect securely without needing to install any special software.
No more messing around with VPNs.
Exactly. Makes life a whole lot easier, especially for folks working remotely or always on the go. But it's not just about access, it's about control. What can users actually do once they're connected? Cisco's Secure Firewall lets you get really granular with application control. So you can say, okay, this group of users, they can access these applications, but not those applications.
So even if someone does manage to slip through the cracks, they're still limited in what they can get their hands on. An extra layer of protection just in case.
You got it. And of course, no zero trust system would be complete without multi-factor authentication. You know, that extra step where you got to enter a code from your phone or something. Cisco's got that covered too.
Before we move on to deployment options, what are some key takeaways our listeners should know about these features?
Okay, so first, Cisco knows how wild the security landscape is these days, and they designed this firewall not just to keep up, but to stay ahead of the game, anticipating threats with Snort 3, giving you that safety net with impact analysis. They're all about proactive security. Second, They get that user experience matters just as much as security. Features like TLS 1.3 decryption and clientless access, that's them making sure security doesn't mean a clunky, frustrating experience for everyone. And lastly, their dedication to that whole zero trust philosophy. It just shows they're thinking long term, making sure your network is ready for whatever comes next.
Okay, so we've talked about all the cool stuff Cisco Secure Firewall can do, but how do you actually get it up and running in your network? Is it like super complicated?
Well, the good news is Cisco gets that one size doesn't fit all, so they got a few different ways you can deploy it.
Options are always good, especially with how fast technology changes these days.
You got that right. So if you need like raw power, top of the line performance, you've got those physical appliances like the 4200 and 3100 series.
Those are the big guns, right?
Yeah.
For those massive networks that need everything running at lightning speed.
Exactly. We're talking high volume traffic, rock solid security, the works. But Cisco also knows that cloud is the future, and they haven't skimped on their virtual firewalls either.
Yeah, with everyone moving to the cloud and working remotely these days, virtual firewalls just make sense.
100%. The agility you get with a virtual firewall, you just can't beat it. Need a new instance up and running, boom, minutes. Need to adjust your resources on the fly, no problem. Plus, they play nice with all those cloud-native services.
Sounds like the best of both worlds. The security of a traditional firewall with the flexibility of the cloud.
You nailed it. And here's the thing. With Cisco, you don't have to sacrifice security for that flexibility. Their virtual firewalls, they pack the same punch as their physical counterparts. Same advanced features, same level of protection.
Now let's talk management. With all these firewalls, physical and virtual, scattered all over the place, it seems like it'd be a nightmare to keep track of it all.
It definitely can be, but Cisco's got you covered there too. They've got two main management options: Firewall Device Manager, or FDM, and then the Firewall Management Center, which everyone calls FMC.
Okay, so what's the difference? Which one's right for who?
So FDM is great for those smaller setups, or if you're someone who likes to, get their hands a little dirty. You can manage everything right from the device itself, or if you're into that, through their API.
So if you're comfortable under the hood and you don't need a ton of fancy features, FDM is the way to go.
Exactly. But if you've got a bigger network, things are more complex, well, that's where FMC really shines. It's like the mothership for all things Cisco Secure Firewall.
Tell me more. What makes FMC so special?
Think of it like this. You've got this single pane of glass, right? And you can see all your firewalls, doesn't matter if they're physical or virtual, all from one place.
No more jumping between different screens and trying to keep everything straight.
Nope. It's all right there. Plus, you can have FMC on your own servers or in the cloud. So again, you've got choices.
Cisco's all about options. But we got to talk about Forrester for a sec. Yeah. Their reports, everyone pays attention to those, and they named Cisco a leader in those firewall solutions, right?
They did. Forrester was really impressed with Cisco's vision for the future, especially that whole integration of AI into their security.
It's one thing for a company to say, hey, we're the best. But when an independent analyst like Forrester backs it up, well, that carries some weight.
For sure. And get this, Cisco was actually the only vendor named a leader in both firewall and microsegmentation. That's a big deal.
Talk about a one-stop shop for all your security needs. So for anyone listening who's been taking notes this whole time, learning all about Cisco Secure Firewall, what's the bottom line?
It's simple. Cisco Secure Firewall, it's not just a firewall. It's a whole security platform built from the ground up to protect you from all those crazy threats out there. They've got the features, they've got the flexibility, and they've got the track record to back it up.
Well said. It's clear Cisco's not resting on their laurels. They're always pushing the boundaries, making sure their tech is top-notch without making it a pain to use. And to you, our listener, we know you've got some big decisions to make about your network security. Hopefully this deep dive has given you the info you need to make the call. Just remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep those firewalls strong. Until next time, everyone.